Hello, and welcome to Manta's Overtime Compliance Academy. This beginner's level overtime compliance course will look at new and existing federal overtime rules and explain how they apply to most small businesses. 51% of small employers don't know whether their salaried employees are exempt from overtime pay under federal rules, according to a recent Manta poll of small business owners. 52% of small employers polled said they were unaware of the changes to overtime regulations that the Obama administration announced this spring. This course will cover the basic overtime rules that small employers need to follow to stay in compliance with the Federal Fair Labor Standards Act. We'll explain the new overtime requirements for salaried employees who perform administrative or management duties for your company. To explain the ins and outs of the Fair Labor Standards Act, the FLSA, this Academy series features legal and operational insights from the U.S. Department of Labor, along with Jill Carilla, partner and employment law attorney at global firm Squire Patton & Boggs, and Manta CEO John Swansinger, along with other labor and employment experts. We'll start with a basic explanation of the FLSA, what the FLSA is, and which businesses are subject to its wage and hour requirements. So, what is the FLSA? Employers in the United States are required to meet the wage and overtime rules mandated in the Federal 1938 Fair Labor Standards Act. The FLSA requires that most employees in the U.S. be paid at least the federal minimum wage plus time and a half the regular rate for hours worked beyond 40 in a work week. More than 130 million American workers are covered by the FLSA. Small businesses with an annual sales volume of $500,000 or more are required to pay all employees in accordance with FLSA regulations, as are small businesses whose employees are engaged in interstate commerce. Some states have enacted their own overtime laws. Employees are entitled to overtime according to the higher of the state or federal standards. We won't be focusing today on state-by-state rules, but we'll focus exclusively on the broader federal regulations. The Fair Labor Standards Act is enforced by the U.S. Department of Labor's Wage and Hour Division. The Department of Labor audits businesses that have overtime violation complaints filed against them. The penalties for violating the FLSA overtime rules can be steep, says labor attorney Jill Carilla. Employers found to be in violation of overtime rules as a result of a DOL audit are subject to back pay compensation. This is a best-case scenario. An even worse prospect for employers is an overtime violation lawsuit. Carilla has seen employers dragged into court by disgruntled employees who, with the help of an attorney, find cause to file a wage and hours suit. Employers who lose an overtime lawsuit have to pay not only back pay, but the attorney's fees for the employee who brought the suit. Even if the court awards only a small back pay judgment, the employee who brought the suit is still entitled to compensation for their legal fees. And that's where the real teeth are for the small employer, Carilla warns. Even one of those suits, and the attorney's fees associated with it, can far exceed the back pay you're on the hook for. The first step to avoiding a costly wage and hour violation is to be aware of how the FLSA overtime rules, including this year's big changes, apply to your employees. First, the good news. There are many things the FLSA does not require of you as an employer. As an employer, you're not required to pay employees extra for working on nights or weekends. Double time pay is not required. The FLSA does not limit the number of hours employees over age 16 can work. The FLSA doesn't require breaks or meal periods, though you may be subject to such rules if your states have enacted them. The FLSA doesn't require vacation, holiday, or sick pay, and you're not required to give pay raises or fringe benefits. These are all policies left to you, the employer. The FLSA does, however, require that covered non-exempt workers be paid no less than time and a half their regular rate for any hours worked over 40 in a work week. The FLSA defines a work week as a fixed, regularly occurring period of 168 hours or 7 consecutive 24-hour periods. A work week doesn't need to follow a standard calendar week. As an employer, you can determine which day the work week will begin for your employees. Different work weeks may be established for different employees. This is a tactic that can help you manage your overtime pay rate. However, you may not average hours worked over a period of 2 or more weeks. Employers can't use comp time to make up for overtime hours. Time and a half pay is due on the regular payday for the period a non-exempt employee works more than 40 hours. Identifying whether employees are exempt or non-exempt from overtime pay under the FLSA is a complex matter. This is where small business owners are most likely to get into trouble, warns attorney Carilla. Non-exempt employees are those you have to pay overtime wages to. Non-exempt employees are those you have to pay overtime wages for any hours they work in a 40-hour work week. Non-exempt employees are generally those that you pay by the hour. Exempt employees are those whom employers aren't required to pay overtime for additional hours they work over 40. Exempt employees are paid a salary rather than by the hour, and these employees also perform duties that qualify them for an exemption under the FLSA. To be classified as exempt from overtime pay, employers must give employees certain job duties and pay them a minimum salary. Before we look at this newly raised salary requirement, let's walk through the common duties needed before you classify your employees as exempt. There are a number of different exemptions for employees depending on the industries in which they work and the duties they perform. The most common type of overtime exemption is the white-collar exemption. This exemption covers employees who perform executive, administrative, or professional duties. For most small businesses, this will apply to managers, administrative staff, computer workers, and outside sales employees. For your employees to count as exempt, they must pass the FLSA's white-collar duties test for the specific jobs they perform. The next course in this series will walk you through those different tests. In addition to performing duties that meet the FLSA's standards for overtime exemption, your exempt employees must also make the minimum salary required under the FLSA. In May of 2016, the Obama administration enacted a rule change which raised that minimum salary, formerly $23,660. That's now doubled to $47,476 a year. That means that salaried employees who make less than the new $47,000 salary threshold are now eligible for overtime pay on top of the regular salary. Employers have until December 1st, 2016 to comply with this higher salary requirement. By then, you'll need to either pay your overtime exempt white-collar employees over the $47,000 a year threshold, or you'll need to reclassify these employees as hourly staff eligible for overtime. Manta CEO John Swansinger recommends that business owners use this new salary rule as an opportunity to review the overtime status of all of your managers, administrative, sales, and professional staff. Simply employing salaried workers doesn't mean businesses are exempt from providing overtime wages, so it's vital to clarify worker classification and comply with FLSA regulations. To guarantee you're classifying your overtime exempt employees in compliance with new and existing overtime rules, our experts recommend taking one of the following steps. Hire a law firm or HR consultant to conduct an employee audit and identify wage and hour issues. If you have more than a handful of employees or you're preparing to expand your business, consult with a labor and employment lawyer who can help you structure your employee classifications in a way that minimizes your overall payroll costs. Or you can conduct your own internal audit. To help you audit your employees, the next course in this series will walk you through those duty tests using the Department of Labor's FLSA Overtime Security Advisor. You can also request assistance from the Department of Labor directly by calling 866-487-9243. Thanks for joining us today for Manta's Beginner's Level Overtime Compliance course. We hope you leave with a better understanding of overtime regulations and how they apply to your small business. The next course in this series will help you determine whether your employees should be classified as overtime exempt or whether they're eligible for overtime pay. Are you looking for advice on a different topic related to your business? For daily advice on small business marketing, finance, operations, sales, and management, we invite you to spend some time reading the articles in the News and Advice section on the Manta.com homepage. While you're there, sign up to receive weekly email updates with helpful operational marketing advice. The Manta team works to empower small businesses to grow and prosper. Every day, thousands of owners gain expertise, training, and practical resources through Manta articles, courses, and webinars. Is there a small business topic you'd like to read about on Manta.com? Send your suggestions to our editors at contentteam@manta.com. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks again, and we wish you the best as you adjust to the new FLSA rules.